This is the Brian Kelly Press Conference, presented by Capital One.
Going into year 2, we understand a lot of those things necessary to be competitive and win games. Now it's how do you do it week in and week out?
As the Tigers travel north to face Mizzou.
Touchdown, Mighty Tigers! Oh!
Coach Kelly is coming up, but first, from inside the Capital One studio on the campus of LSU, here are your hosts, former Tiger Gordy Rush, and the voice of your Fighting Tigers, Chris Blair.
Well, good Monday morning. Once again, it's time for the Brian Kelly Press Conference presented by Capital One. Here we are on this Monday. Hopefully, some of the raw emotion for all of us has settled down a little bit. It was a tough evening, as it turned out, in Oxford this past Saturday. Ole Miss getting the win, 55-49, in a game that featured a lot of offense. And that may be the best way to put that game, really, for both teams. Unfortunately, I guess you could say Gordy Rush, Ole Miss made a play or two more on defense. I don't even know if that's accurate based on what we witnessed on Saturday. And, you know, I mentioned at the end of the broadcast before we finished up there at Vaught Hemingway, it was one of those games hard to understand but easy to explain when you watch the game and then when you go back and look at the stat line. But it was a tough night, historic night in a lot of ways, but unfortunately not good for LSU.
No, a lot to clean up on the defensive side of the football. 706 yards of total offense, missed tackles, missed assignments, and some of the same things that we saw in the second half of the LSU-Arkansas game occurred again on Saturday night. And now the difficult thing becomes, Chris, those are the type of things I think once you get in season, you kind of who you are, you know, tackling wise and what have you. And there's only so many periods that you can dedicate to tackling. Certainly you can clean up missed assignments. You've got to be able to react better on the football. But, you know, there was enough mistakes on that back end that LSU got to be able to clean up, to play a similar type team offensively in Missouri, who arguably has better wide receivers than Ole Miss. So it's going to be a challenge this Saturday.
You know, I mentioned last Thursday to Coach Kelly, I mean, sometimes, you know, practice, for the most part, as you said, there's only so many periods. They've got it down to what they're doing at every given minute, every given second. It's very organized. But they do have themes during the week. And I asked Coach Kelly, and he was pretty clear that last week, based on, especially as you mentioned, the second half in that game against Arkansas, they had to go back to the fundamentals. And they were talking about, you know, form, tackling, being in position, doing your job. And then you had a chance to talk with him going into the locker room on Saturday, and it was pretty evident, although I think he didn't mix any words this time around, talking about those same issues coming up that they had to fix in the second half.
Just basic fundamental, setting the edge, making sure you've got your run responsibility, who's coming inside out, who's coming outside in. The one thing I will say, it's really hard, Chris, to simulate game speed when Ole Miss goes no huddle and all the above. It's tough to do that in practice. I get it, but that's why you run like you do during the summer and fall camp. You get after it, that you're in shape to be able to react to that, be able to make football plays out of it. But again, you know, Coach Kelly expressed in his interview with us in post game, disappointing, and there's not anyone new coming through the door. LSU is, you know, they have the personnel they have. They've got to coach them up better, teach them up better. They've got to perform better.
You know, we mentioned on the broadcast early on that Lane Kiffin, as he did against Alabama, although they got beat 24-10 the week before, you know, he scripts that. He knows where the matchups are. He knows the matchups he wants, especially early. And typically, although I think they ran faster against LSU than they had all season. I mean, they only had averaging about 64, 65 plays per game coming into that. They were well over that in the 80s against LSU. But you mentioned it. You said, hey, we saw this last year in Baton Rouge. They jumped out to an early lead, big lead, double-digit lead, double-score lead, I should say. So that really wasn't all that surprising. They had the fans, they had the energy, all of that stuff early on. You just were hoping, I think all of us were hoping, that you would see a repeat of last year where LSU, again, as you said, would get their feet underneath them, they would adjust, they would settle, and then be able to make plays. Because lost in all of this, and I know it's been said probably 2,000 times since Saturday, was an absolutely incredible offensive performance by Jaden Daniels and this LSU offense. And I mentioned to you when they took the lead in the opening drive of the third quarter for the first time on the day, I said the thing that concerns me is LSU is making incredible plays. The throws are absolutely on the money, dropping them in the bucket. Guys are making catches. Ole Miss seems to be scoring easier, and that's got to stop.
Right. Yeah, talk about Jaden Daniels. He's in the hunt for the Heisman statistically. And a lot of people asked me before the season, you think Daniels will be there? And I said no, because LSU's not going to be in those USC type of games. And they were in one of those USC type of games in which you just have monster statistical games. And for the people that don't see LSU play, they can read the stat line that Daniels is having. I think he's in the top 3 with quarterbacks and top 2 quarterbacks total yards. But it doesn't matter when you lose the football game. For me, LSU, this played out the way I thought it would offensively for LSU. It took them a while to get going. Then they settled in the second quarter and Jaden got hot. And in the second half, like last year and like the way Alabama started leaning on Ole Miss in the second half of the game a week ago, LSU's offensive line, I thought dominated the line of scrimmage, and they started running the ball at will. And as you mentioned, LSU earned all of the plays, right? They earned the yards that they got, and nothing away from Ole Miss. Ole Miss certainly earned some of them, but there were too many times in my book there were freebies. They were missed tackle, missed assignment, blown coverages, and in the SEC, you can't do that. You can't give people shallow post routes and all of a sudden nobody's in the middle of the football field, or some of these where one person misses a tackle and they're bad angles and someone's able to run, for 70 yards. And those are things you just don't usually see and absolutely have to get cleaned up.
We talked about it on this show last Monday, and you pointed it out, only about 65 plays per game, and that kind of stood out to you because that's not typically what Ole Miss wants to do. But I think some of that had to do with their inability through the first 4 weeks to run the football, because as you've said numerous times, with all the fancy plays and the big home run balls, it's Lane Kiffin spreading you out to run it. They haven't been able to do it, and they were able to do it on Saturday. One of the things we said, hopefully they don't figure it out against LSU, but Judkins was kind of the Judkins we saw last year. Backup running back had 90 yards. Bentley, he had some big runs. So again, it was everything that couldn't happen, and you mentioned it: missed tackles, missed assignments, wide open across the middle of the field. The tight end was a killer all evening long for Ole Miss. But the fact that they were able to run the ball, again, is a benefit to Lane Kiffin, because late in the game, he just started with the toss sweep, the old-fashioned play to get LSU moving side to side. And again, not saying they were gassed at the end of the game, but they were covering a lot of ground.
Yeah, look, LSU was a little gassed. I mean, anybody that's going to go 88 plays against that tempo is going to be gassed. I'm not trying to make excuses. I think that they went wide a lot because they were booking on two things: that the Ole Miss wide receivers were doing a nice job blocking the LSU defensive backs, and then secondly, there were just some errors in the pursuit game. And so the combination of just running toss and then running a bunch of high percentage slip screens out wide and just trying to get running back or wide receiver one-on-one out there against coverage. There were too many missed tackles out there. And so it's not as if Ole Miss really had to be overly risky with their play calling. It was high percentage stuff. LSU just was not executing. They were missing tackles.
Again, a great night for Jaden Daniels that obviously will be overshadowed by the loss. Another great game by this LSU receiving corps, led by Malik Neighbors and actually led by Brian Thomas Jr., who had 3 touchdown receptions and just made some just incredible catches on some incredible throws with good coverage. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of open guys for LSU. They just made plays. So, unfortunately, they came up short 55-49. And, it's one of the things that, you kind of talk about each and every week. You get a game like this, it's heartbreaking, it's emotional. It wasn't your best effort, as Coach Kelly said, defensively, but you can't flush it because there's so many things you have to teach and show over again this is where we need to be. This is how we come up and make this tackle, that you have to go over this film.
Yeah, look, you have to go over this film, and it's part of the day and age it is college football with this transfer portal. Coach Kelly mentioned he took 41 new people on that trip to Orlando. That's a combination of people through the transfer portal and obviously new players and freshmen. And you look at LSU out there, especially in the secondary, you've got really one now returning guy in Major Burns, and you've got a transfer from Marshall, one from Southeastern, you have one from Syracuse, one from Texas A&M. You have a true freshman. And defensive backfield, you've got to be on the same page. If one person makes a mistake or somebody's not on the same page, the problem in that back end, that's 6 points, Chris. You look at Ole Miss on the other side, they were really struggling in the receiver game. They had been hurt and they had lost their good receivers. Harris was from Louisiana Tech, Wade and Watkins from Western Kentucky and North Texas. They put it together in this game against LSU. They were on the same page. That was the first time I think Lane's offense really clicked against good competition this year, and so they were able to put it together, and hopefully LSU can find the right 4 or 5 back there, get on the same page and clean up some of those errors.
All right. Well, again, speaking of turning the page or on the same page, let's turn the page and put that in the rear view, because LSU's got to get ready to go on the road for a second straight week and take on a team feeling pretty good about themselves, as they should. Missouri off to a 5-0 start. Only one game in conference play. They handled Vanderbilt this past weekend. So another big matchup, another chance to go on the road, pick up a win in conference play before you come back and finish 5 of your last 6 at the friendly confines of Tiger Stadium. We'll take a quick break. Don't forget, Coach Kelly coming up at the top of the hour, 12 noon. We'll talk Missouri and LSU when we return right after this.
Swinging to Golf Suites, your #1 destination for golf, food, and fun. Whether you are looking to enhance your game using state-of-the-art TrackMan technology, or simply want to relax and enjoy an ice-cold beverage and delicious meal on our 6,000 square foot deck at Golf Suites, we guarantee a good time and even better company. And there's more. Whether it's a corporate outing, a birthday bash, or any group event, Golf Suites is your go-to venue for both small and large gatherings. Golf Suites. It's time to find your sweet spot.
Albertsons is making shopping and saving easier than ever. Check out Albertsons For You in our mobile app, where you can shop for groceries and save weekly with digital coupons all in one place. With Albertsons For You, you can earn rewards points every time you shop and redeem them for free groceries. Brand new Albertsons For You members receive $5 off their next $25 purchase just for signing up. Download the Albertsons app or go to albertsons.com to sign up. Albertsons, fresh food, local flavors.
If SEC football runs deep in your veins, then Sirius XM SEC Radio is what you need to listen to. We're talking conference and team previews, plus hear live games, news, and analysis from experts like Chris Doering, Aaron Murray, and Max Starks. Go in-depth with your favorite team with coaches shows, championship specials, and more. Get inside SEC football like nowhere else. Feed your fandom on the Sirius XM app. Stay up to date anywhere you go. Just download the app and start streaming.
Tiger fans, this is Eddie Kennison, former LSU football wide receiver. If you know me, you know I'm all about making big plays.
Tigers win! Tigers win!
That's why I joined the team at LSU Sports Properties. Our goal here is to help businesses make big plays both on and off the field. If you want to give your brand that competitive edge and be a part of the biggest stage in college sports, give the corporate sponsorship team at LSU Athletics a call. Your brand, our fans. Utilize the power of LSU Athletics to promote your business and sponsor LSU Athletics today. Call 225-578-2788. Go Tigers.
Coach Kelly is just moments away from previewing the week for the Fighting Tigers. This is the Brian Kelly Press Conference, presented by Capital One. Once again, here are Gordy and Chris.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Coming up in about 6 minutes, Coach Brian Kelly will join us from the Lawton Room, talk LSU and Missouri. Of course, he'll have some comments, I'm sure, from this past Saturday. And, Gordy, let's talk about Missouri. I look at this team. They've got one conference win, as I mentioned, only one conference game. They've got wins on the season against South Dakota, Middle Tennessee, Kansas State, of course, in that battle, 30-27, they got the win. Got a win over Memphis. And really, when you look, I know it's non-conference after defeating Vandy 38-21, really Middle Tennessee is the only team that stands out that is struggling to start this season. So, again, it's kind of like going into the Ole Miss game. You know they've got some good players. They've looked good in their games. How good are they? I guess we'll find out coming up on Saturday morning.
Yeah, and, of course, we don't get a chance to see a whole lot of Missouri. They've been under Eli Drinkwitz, basically a 500 football team. Of course, saw them in 2020 in the COVID year, and that loss was obviously an ugly game and unique circumstances. But looking at them this year, one thing that I think they're going to present a challenge when you want to, I think, describe this football team, similar to Ole Miss, in that they're going to spread the football field. I think they're going to do it with better wide receivers than Ole Miss had, which is obviously concerning. Luther Burden is one of the best wide receivers in the SEC. He's got 43 receptions. He's averaging almost 130 yards per game. Theo Weiss is a transfer from the University of Oregon that is a dynamic football player. He has 3 touchdowns. He's just kind of getting his footing. They've got 2 scat backs in Schrader and Pete. And they have a young quarterback, and that's been the problem for Drake up there so far. He hadn't been able to settle in on a quarterback. And Brady Cook has played good football, not great football, but they're going to look at this film against the Ole Miss film and expect them to air it out here in Farote Field at 11 o'clock. They're going to take their shots at the Tigers.
A couple of things. This morning I was looking at it and I'm thinking, all right, you're Eli Drinkwitz. You're trying to make the claim, and so far, other than, I guess, Kentucky, who might want to have a word, that you can challenge Georgia for the SEC East, which I think 2 months ago nobody thought anybody would. So he's got that. He's trying to keep the confidence, and obviously they've got tons of confidence in this Missouri team. He also can look back to 2020 and say, hey, guys, you remember that season we were home dogs against LSU and were able to come out with a victory in that game, and I know 2020 was what it was. A strange year. But again, there's a lot of things he can build into his team this week, which tells me that place is going to be lit from a crowd and atmosphere standpoint because it's a huge game for them. The Tigers are in town, and they're still trying to make this claim that we think we're better than 21st in the country.
No doubt, and it's sold out. Games sold out. I mean, you're familiar with Missouri. It's been a while since they've had a sellout, so they're. This has been circled on the map when the schedule came out simply because they felt like they could go 5-0 if they got by Kansas State, and this would be a huge game to play LSU. Look, it's going to be a tremendous challenge for LSU. Defensively, Blake Baker, you might remember that name. He was on Coach Ogeron's staff, a former linebacker at Tulane. He was the linebacker coach here. He's been the defensive coordinator for 2 years up there. They were best in the SEC defensively in points given up per game last year, 25.2. They returned 8 starters from a year ago. Defensive end, they have to rebuild that position. They did that a little bit through the portal. Look, I'm not going to tell you they've been elite on defense this year. They gave up 21 points to Vanderbilt, 27 to Memphis. But this is a good football team, and LSU is going to have to clean up the mistakes on defense, and Jane Daniels and company are going to have to continue to keep the pedal down and score points to win this game on the road.
Well, to your point again, I mean, they're only giving up 21 points a game on the season. Again, I understand 4 of those are non-conference games. If you're LSU, and I'm sure maybe Coach Kelly will address this, I mean, the passing offense has been phenomenal. Between Jaden Daniels and the receiver core that we have talked about. There are plays to be made. Teams have made plays against this Missouri defense in the passing game. But, real quick, your thoughts on LSU running the football, because the previous 2 games, I thought there were some real improvements there, which is going to be key not only last week, the week before, but this week and moving forward. Because I think running the football, while there are going to be plays to be made throwing the ball, I think running the ball up there in this game is going to be key.
They ran for 223 yards last week, which is unbelievable, except for their opponents ran for 317. Like, I think the discussion may be, do we run the football a little bit more and give our defense a blow? Best defense is obviously time possession and your offense is on the football field. And then there's going to be the other side of that coin, Chris. And Why do you want to change a thing? You're going to take what the defense gives you. Blake Baker has been known for being aggressive, similar to what Pete Golding was at Ole Miss. He's going to bring pressure packages. They were ranked among one of the top NCAA defenses for plays made behind the line of scrimmage a year ago. And so if that's their MO, you're not going to run the football in 8-man fronts. You're going to take what the defense gives them. But look, I think the LSU running game's been much improved, and those statistics bear that out from last week.
All right, real quick, coming up in just a few moments, Coach Kelly will take to the podium in the Lawton Room. Coach Kelly and LSU obviously focused on Missouri. It will be a tall challenge on the road for all the reasons we have discussed over the last 5 minutes. But you and I can look at the schedule. You got this game on the road. You dropped one last week on the road. Now you got 5 of your last 6 going to be at home. How important is it? And I hate to use this. We use this phrase in basketball a lot, steal a road game. LSU is the favorite. But if they can pull this game out, how important is it with what's remaining on the schedule?
Well, it's huge. I mean, let's speak frankly here. This is not the strongest SEC that we've seen. Alabama, it looks like they're the team to beat, and A&M is playing good football. But at no point is anybody elite that's left on the schedule. And as you've mentioned, you get everybody except Alabama here in Tiger Stadium. So with just one loss in conference play, it's huge to go on the road and come back with a win, and hopefully take the rest of these games -1 here in Tiger Stadium.
Real quickly, Auburn and LSU will either be at 6 p.m. Central or 6:30 ESPN or SEC Network. That'll be decided later. Let's go to Coach Brian Kelly.
Obviously, a difficult loss. Obviously some great individual performances. Jaden Daniels, Brian Thomas, Malik, Logan, offensively, just a great performance. We wish we could have matched it defensively. We did not. Certainly very disappointed that we weren't able to come out with a win on the road. Again, we'll have to look at how we get better. Our guys will bounce back. I'm confident in that. And we'll have to go back on the road against a really good Missouri football team. It's an 11 a.m. kickoff, team that's nationally ranked, so we'll get challenged again on the road against a nationally ranked team. They're well coached. I mean, Eli does a great job coaching both on the offensive side of the ball. I think defensively, they're as well coached as that I've seen. Fundamentally sound, do a great job in terms of all of the fundamentals. And then, they've got some, big time playmakers. The quarterback's playing extremely well, highly efficient. Luther Burden is, you put him up there with Malik Neighbors. He's that kind of player. He's explosive. He leads the SEC in receptions, obviously. So he's a game breaker. They're tough and physical on the offensive line. Do a great job running the outside zone play action, high percentage passing game. Number 1 in the SEC in pass efficiency. So playing at home, really good offense, excellent system. As I said, well coached defensively. Number 1 in the SEC and 9th nationally in rushing yards allowed per game. So just a really good, solid football team, fundamentally sound in all areas, deserving of their nationally ranking, and will be a great challenge for our football team. But I'm confident our guys will play their best when their best is needed, and we'll go on the road again. Obviously from our perspective, look to play, a complete football game in all 3 phases. So with that, we'll open up to questions.
Hey, Coach, would you say that Matt House and the defense are a big reason why you won 10 games last year?
Absolutely. If you look at the games that we won last year, start with Auburn, the Auburn game and the way we played defensively, taking the football away. If you look at the Arkansas game last year and the kind of defensive performances clearly, defense won games for us. We had a lot of veteran players. You're talking about, Joe Fouché, Greg Brooks. We lost, Mekhi Gardner, Jared Bernard, Converse. That's a veteran group in the back end of the defense that, made a lot of plays for us. So, look, we know where we're at. We're playing a combination of 15 freshmen and transfers, and they're young and inexperienced, and they got to grow, and there's going to be some growing pains. And I said that at the start of the season. When you take that many guys, there's a red flag, and we're going to have to go through these growing pains, but we're going to keep fighting, and we're going to keep teaching, we're going to keep coaching. But yeah, the blame does not lie at the feet of one person. This is a collective situation where we've got to coach better and we've got to play better.
Yeah, that was just my follow-up. When the defense struggles, the fans go after the coordinator.
Oh, sure.
And so how are you two working together, and how much confidence do you have in him that he's going to, try to get this fixed?
Well, we have a process that we – look, when we win, we rely on our process for consistency, right? And when we lose, we do the same thing, but sometimes you have to tweak your process, right? There are things that you tweak. And so in our total preparation, it's always about the physical, the technical, the tactical, and the mental. So will there be some tweaks? Possibly, technically, sure. Tactically, absolutely. Where there'll be some tweaks physically, certainly. Maybe we have to do some things, but we have a process so we don't get caught up in the emotions of what might or might not happen. So we always rely on our process so we can stay consistent on a day-to-day basis, and we'll rely on our process whether things are going well or sometimes when there's some adversity like there is right now.
Yeah, Brian, right here. Can you confirm if you've hired Pete Jenkins as an analyst, and if you have, what do you kind of expect that he can bring to y'all that maybe right now you don't have?
Yeah, so as you know, Jimmy Lindsey has not been with us as our defensive line coach. And, one of the things that we want to be able to do is, in hiring Pete, and his role has not been defined yet, other than he will be consulting and assisting our defensive line room. And, John Jancic has the defensive line. His expertise is not necessarily in that area. He's a good football coach, but we want to provide our student athletes with the most resources, and Pete gives us the expertise and the ability to help us with technique and some technical things that we want to be able to do on a day-to-day basis. So he's going to come in, he'll be here and assist us and help Coach Jancic in that room.
What are the advantages, or are there in this situation any disadvantages to having a corner coach and a safety coach? Why is the staff kind of moved towards that model?
Well, there's so many complexities. I mean, this would take a while. Your safeties are linked into run fits that are not the same run fits that the corners are. So, your safeties need to be part of some drill work that the corners are not even involved in, whereas, the corners need to be in some technical work during that time that would be purely a waste of time for them. So you really need to separate those two. They really can't be working together all the time. So it's something that, for me, I think probably the last, it's got to be 20 years since I've had that group together. It's always been safeties and corners for me.
Just defensively, how do you balance personnel with scheme? I mean, you guys have played a lot of the same players, over the last couple of weeks, but just what does it look like, I guess, kind of going forward in terms of how you get those guys in the best position to impact the game and the scheme?
Yeah, so, we got home at around 2 a.m. I got about 4 or 5 hours sleep, and since that time, we've been having those discussions up until I walked into this door right here. So that point is exactly what we're spending time on. I think we've come up with some valid kind of solutions to where we want to go moving forward. Look, we missed a lot of tackles that gave up a lot of yards after the misses. We've got to be better in the fundamentals, and our guys know that. We've got to get the ball on the ground. We've got to create a new line of scrimmage, and that will be job one and job two as we move forward on Tuesday.
Brian in the middle. There's kind of the old axiom, when you have a game like that, you burn the tape. Do you and your staff, do you find any benefit of watching a game like that and showing things like that to your team?
I think there's probably moments where you kind of, say, let's just flush this because it's not going to happen again. But I think it's important with a young team, especially on the look. Let's really look at this as it is, right? We have 11 players that have started at their position on offense back. 11. All 11 players at their particular position had started at their position at one time or another on the offensive side of the ball. And they have played like that, right? And the expectation should be. We really have 4 on the defensive side of the ball. And so it's important that every moment is a teaching experience for them. So in one sense, you kind of want to move forward, but in another, it's so important that every moment becomes a teaching moment for our football team.
Hey, Coach. Last year, your D-line had to, out of necessity, carry so many snaps. I guess just like looking at the Ole Miss game, those starters carried about 85% of them. Is that the number you want to be at? And I also had a follow-up.
It's really about, getting the right players on the field, playing their very best football. And so, what is that configuration? And it's kind of going back to the earlier question. We've got to be able to maximize the potential of our defensive line. And we're in conversation about, are we doing that? And so we're big. We're big up front. We have to play physical. We have to play with low pads. We have to create a new line of scrimmage. So I'm not trying to avoid your question as much as I'm trying to tell you that we have to create the right scheme so our guys can be the best versions of themselves.
And just a player update, was and is Deshaun Womack available right now?
Yes, absolutely.
Ryan, you spoke of there's a collective effort in coaching. With Matt House still making all the decisions. You have a former defensive coordinator who worked for you, obviously, on the staff. Do you want to get more of his input? I mean, has any of that changed as far as, I'm not saying you have to have co-defensive coordinators, but has anything changed?
No, the decision-making process is nothing that is a concern of mine. This is really about the teaching and the execution. And so that requires two parties, the coaches coaching and the players executing. And so, that's not about leadership. That's not about the message not resonating. I feel great about all those things and the leadership that we're getting from my defensive coordinator. Input, we're always welcoming input. So, matter of fact, we had a meeting today with the entire defense. I was with them, and we got great input. I'll always ask for input. There's never a silence when it comes to weighing in, because you can't fully buy in unless you're allowed to weigh in. So we take information. We want to listen to everybody that has experience. But there is one voice. There is one leader of our defense. I have the utmost confidence in his ability to run our defense, and he will run it effectively. We need to continue to coach and teach and develop our players, and we will do that.
Ryan, on that sort of teaching and coaching, is there anything that you want to have done differently in terms of the coaching of some fundamentals like tackling to improve in those sort of basic areas?
Well, so what is tackling, right? What is tackling? Tackling can be taught and something that we teach every single day. And so, when we talk about it, how much time do we spend on it? So we have to examine and look at our practice schedule. Are we spending enough time? Well, traditionally, it would say that, that's what we normally spend. With this group, maybe we have to spend more time. So those are the kind of discussions that we're having, is that, we recognize the importance of tackling, how important it is, and how it impacted this game. I think it was, over 285 yards after misses that led to their offense, and tackling was at the center of it. So, we have to be able to look at, are we spending enough time given the circumstances? And those would be the adjustments we would make.
Coach, down here, it looked like you're forced into a lot of different combinations in the two outside corner spots. So I'm wondering, how far along are you into finding a consistent grouping back there?
You're seeing what I'm seeing. We're working our tails off. We had some injuries there. We lost Zay for a little bit with an ankle. Ashton Stamps is coming off of a groin injury. They were game. They gave us everything they had, and did the best they could given the circumstances. So I'm proud of those guys. They went out and they competed and did the best that they could given the circumstances. But that's our rotation. Those are the four guys, LT and Denver. Those are the four guys that we're rolling with right now.
Hey, Coach, over here. So update on Greg Brooks. How is he doing? And just, I know things are bigger than football, obviously.
Yeah.
But one more thing as well. Just not having him out there, or just from a football standpoint, how much of a void is that, not have a leader back there to help with communication, line guys up in the secondary?
Yeah, I mean, certainly the last thing I was thinking about was the tackling, but saw Greg yesterday. We had a couple of players over there. Greg, I know, was over there, Penn and Mackay. He's able to respond to commands. It's been a long road for him. His family has been amazing. They're there every day. The support that he's been receiving from the community has been overwhelming. I know the family can't thank everybody enough for the great support. But this is a long battle, and he continues to fight every day. He was able to give us thumbs up yesterday when we were there. So we're getting, those little acknowledgments that makes us feel better as we get a chance to see him. Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, Greg and Joe Fouché and Jay Ward and Jared Bernard-Converse and Mackay Gardner, those were veteran dudes for us last year. And they they got the ball on the ground. And we got to keep working with our young guys, and we got to get the ball on the ground. But there's a significant loss in tackles there, and we knew it was going to be a process, and we're going to stick with our process, and we're going to keep working at it, and we got to get better each and every day. We know we're accountable for it. We're not going to shy away from it, but we got to work on the guys that we have, and we're going to work to get better every day.
Brian, a couple things. You talked about the communication. I was just wondering, what is it coming from the players? Obviously, with young guys like you have in certain spots, there's some things that they're just not going to be able to do. What are they telling you? And then secondly, in a situation like this with the secondary you have, is it better to back the safety out of the box and have them play a little bit more help?
Yeah, I mean, look, communication, there shouldn't be issues with communication. There should be, if you are in man coverage, you should know you're in man coverage. We had a situation where, obviously we thought we were in man and everybody else thought they were in man and one guy didn't think he was in man. So, those things can happen, certainly. Trying to decide whether, you're dropping somebody in a hit position versus keeping him back. I mean, it's so technical relative for me to get into it today. And I'm not trying to dumb down the answer as much as what I'm trying to say is everything that we try to do is to take not only what we're trying to defend into consideration, but who we have out there too. So all of those things are taken into consideration, is what I'm saying.
Coach, with Deuce Chestnut not traveling with the team, was that a coach's decision?
Yes.
And is there any update on the injury report?
Yes, let me give you that. Injury report. We have Chris Hilton, Omar Spates, and Aaron Anderson. We would list those guys as of yesterday, questionable. Lacey and Javen Nicholas as probable. Those are our guys. Lower body for the first 3 guys, and the same for the next 2 that are probable.
In the middle, Brian. Yeah. So you mentioned a lot of the new players defensively.
Yeah.
Last season was very similar. You had a lot of new players defensively that had transferred in.
Mhm.
Defense last year performed well. Why isn't the message, or why doesn't the message appear to be taking this year the way it did a year ago?
Well, I think I made it clear that the different players that we're talking about are younger players that are playing, very prominent roles. You had a Micah Baskerville, for example, instead of a Whit Weeks, who's a young player versus a veteran player. You're playing, a freshman corner versus a fifth-year corner. So, yeah, there's a lot of freshmen that are in that, and because of that, there's a lot more inexperience. What we need to do is we need to play better. You're absolutely right. I mean, so your question is on point relative to the overall defense. We have to play better, regardless of who the players are. But we have a lot of new players, and we have to get the younger players that are in prominent roles, as well as the transfer players that we picked through the portal. Those were the guys that we picked. We have to get all those guys playing at a higher level.
Coach, a lot of people watching the game felt like Whit Weeks made an immediate impact when he got into the game, and then apparently he didn't get in until it was 28 points on the board or whatnot. Do you think he may start or get into the game earlier, or how do you evaluate the way he's played? He's young, he's learning.
Yeah, I mean, we love his energy. We love what he's doing. We want him to continue to grow, continue to do what he's doing. There's nothing that we don't like about him, but he's learning the position.
Brian, down here. In the front. Yeah. You talked about going to the portal and end up getting young guys in order to avoid having to go into the portal year after year in the secondary. But in retrospect right now, do you maybe wish that y'all had approached that any differently?
We didn't have much choice based upon where we were the year before. We had to put a team together. So we were going to be in this situation regardless. And listen, I don't want to sit up here and talk about what we don't have. What we have is a good football team that needs to play better, and we need to coach better. And regardless of all the other things that are out there, we're in the position that we're at. And so, look, I mean, we know the situation that we have. We've got to get the guys that are on our roster playing at a higher level. And we had 34 missed tackles for 284 yards. We have to tackle the football, and we have to create a new line of scrimmage. If we do those two things, we're going to be better on defense, we're going to keep the points down, and we're going to continue to win football games at LSU. That's the standard. We didn't live up to that standard, and we need to. So we need to get back to work. We're going to get back to work here today with a team meeting, and we'll get back on the field on Tuesday with that being our resolve.
Coach, right here, down right here. You've had so many years of experience. Is there anything that you can draw from or pull from? Not that there's a magic recipe, but to be able to kind of turn this around within the season. I mean, is this something that just takes time, or is it more of just getting these guys?
I don't have time. Do I look like I've got time? I didn't come down here because I got time. I came down here to be successful with the LSU football program. So, no, we don't have time. That's why we did what we did in the transfer portal, or I would have took all freshmen last year. So there is some management of this, but we'll get them better. We'll get these guys playing better. They want to play better. They've got pride. These guys will respond. They'll bounce back. We lost, I think, 40-something to 14 to Tennessee, and I think they were ready to burn the city down. And we came back the next week and beat Florida on the road. So we don't need to all jump off the buildings yet. We're going to be okay. We're going to keep working hard. These guys got a lot of pride in LSU football. Our coaches are going to work hard, and we're going to keep getting better.
If you could just kind of educate me, are you all running combo coverages in the secondary?
You're killing me. You're killing me right now.
I just don't want to say anything wrong on TV. Starting a new leaf.
Yes, we're running combo coverages.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah. And then secondly, 34 tackles, is pursuit angles, guys that don't ever get to the tackle, is that included in that?
Well, when we're talking about missed tackles, we're talking about we're in the hole, we miss a tackle. We're not talking about open field missed tackles. We're talking about in its totality, when we have an opportunity to make a tackle, we miss the tackle. Oh, well, everything is, if we take the wrong angle, if we're for outside in instead of inside out, all those things matter. This is a hard day. Tough questions, probing, dual coverages. We don't tilt the nose, so if we can get through that, we're in good shape. Any other questions about? Yes, please. I'll take one. I'm taking your job. I'm sorry.
They just have to pass the mic around. You have to answer the questions. Usually, when you see a program or a team having a struggle in a game or something, it's often both sides of the ball. But your offense has been exceptional the entire season. Can you speak to, from a coaching standpoint, just what level of
It's number one in total offense.
Yeah.
It's number one in pass offense. It's just in case you didn't get these, if you want to write them down. It's number one in third down conversion. It's number two in scoring. It's number three in third rush offense. Jaden Daniels leads the SEC and ranked number two in the nation in total offense. Leads the SEC in total touchdowns in passing, pass efficiency, and passing touchdowns. And it's the fourth straight game accounting for at least 4 touchdowns. Brian Thomas leads the nation in receiving. This is from Mike Bonnett's sake, because he does this all the time, and I never read any of this stuff from Mike. So, Mike,
that was a good.
This is for you. He does this. It's all nice. It's typed up.
And I think, and you lead the nation in first downs.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because the 2019 team, prolific. It won the national championship. These numbers are starting to look like those kind of numbers. That's the kind of offense that we're talking about. And that's why it's so darn important to play better defense. That's why it's so important. Because when you have an offense like this, you want to be able to showcase. Absolutely. And it doesn't get the showcase because all the questions here are about the defense. And I understand that. Totally understand that. So that's why it's so important that we do the things necessary to get the points down so we play better defense.
One last thing, if I may. From a coach's critical eye, we see the numbers as you do, the stats and everything. How efficient are you being on offense? I mean, how good does it look to you? I mean, are you like, I'm sure there's always something you can do better, but.
Yeah, I mean, I think there were, I thought the last couple of drives, we had a chance to, with 5 minutes to go in the game. We don't want to, like we did against Arkansas, we don't want to give the ball up, That was probably the one thing that we wish we were better. To me, the last team that had the ball was going to win, and we had the last chance, and we didn't make a play at the end. But we had a chance to close that game out, I thought, and we didn't convert when we needed to. That's probably the only thing that I could take a shot at our offense, and there's not much to say about that. Good. All right. Thank you.
Coach Brian Kelly with this week's press conference, as you would imagine. Defense was kind of the order of the day, and Coach Kelly says they're got to get better, and they'll start trying to do that later today with a team meeting and then getting on the practice field starting on tomorrow. Got to get ready. They got to travel for the second straight week. They're headed to Columbia, Missouri to take on number 21, the Missouri Tigers, with an 11 o'clock a.m. kickoff. We'll wrap things up for this week after this break, the Brian Kelly press conference presented by Capital One.
It's time to score big with healthcare decisions this enrollment period.
With a Medicare Advantage plan from People's Health, you get more benefits than original Medicare.
Like $0 copays for primary care and virtual doctor visits.
Part D prescription drug coverage.
Vision and dental services. And an allowance for OTC items.
Call People's Health to learn more. 1-855-633-4207. Plans are insured through United Healthcare Insurance Company or one of its affiliated companies. A Medicare Advantage organization with a Medicare contract. Enrollment in the plan depends on the plan's contract renewal.
Unrivaled content, unprecedented access. LSU Gold, powered by Bayou Traditions, is the only place for exclusive behind-the-scenes content featuring your favorite LSU teams. It's all access to the Tigers, all year long, from pregame warm-ups to postgame celebrations and every moment in between. You can watch LSU Gold anywhere, anytime, and on your favorite device. Go to lsu.gold today to sign up for your free 7-day trial, so you can be there for each step of LSU's championship journeys. That's lsu.gold. Unrivaled content, unprecedented access. LSU Gold, powered by Bayou Traditions, is the only place for exclusive behind-the-scenes content featuring your favorite LSU teams. It's all access to the Tigers, all year long, from pregame warm-ups to postgame celebrations and every moment in between. You can watch LSU Gold anywhere, anytime, and on your favorite device. Go to lsu.gold today to sign up for your free 7-day trial, so you can be there for each step of LSU's championship journeys. That's lsu.gold.
If SEC football runs deep in your veins, then Sirius XM SEC Radio is what you need to listen to. We're talking conference and team previews, plus hear live games, news, and analysis from experts like Chris Doering, Aaron Murray, and Max Starks. Go in-depth with your favorite team with coaches shows, championship specials, and more. Get inside SEC football like nowhere else. Feed your fandom on the Sirius XM app. Stay up to date anywhere you go. Just download the app and start streaming. This is the Brian Kelly Press Conference, presented by Capital One.
LSU tries to regroup defensively, and they'll need it against a very good Missouri team, 5-0. They'll host the Tigers. Well, it's the Tigers hosting the Fighting Tigers, as it were, this coming Saturday with kickoff at 11 o'clock. Coming up on Thursday night, once again, it's the Brian Kelly Show. We'll be live at TJ Ribs. Hope you'll join us for dinner or tune in wherever you are across the state and across the country, for that matter. Then on Saturday, it starts early, LSU game day. Our guys get our broadcast day off to a start there for, late breakfast, early brunch at 9 a.m. before they hand it off to us up in Columbia, Missouri for kickoff. LSU and Mizzou coming your way just after 11 o'clock. One last news and note. Again, the SEC office announced earlier, right at 12 noon, that LSU and Auburn will be under the lights. We have to determine whether or not it will be on ESPN at 6 or SEC Network at 6:30. That decision will be forthcoming in the next few days. So stay tuned for that with at LSU Football on X. Well, that'll wrap things up for us here on the Brian Kelly Press Conference. Hope you'll join us again next Monday, 11:40 a.m. Thanks to Gordy Rush. Thanks to you. And until later in the week, this is Chris Blair saying so long, everybody, and go Tigers.
This has been the Brian Kelly Press Conference, presented by Capital One.